Hey Stampers, it's Linda Schmitt with Stampin' with the Houndz. I have another fun fold technique to show you today. This is called the Faux Step Fun Fold. And what it is, you've kind of got two cards that you're putting together. And one of them, I call it kind of like a tent. And then this other one has that little step. And then you put it together and you can off-center it. You can center this center panel. And there's different ways of doing it. This is the landscape way. And then this one is the portrait. So really fun to use to do these, and they're also a great way of using up your designer series paper and highlighting a front and back of your papers and stuff. And on this one I stepped it up and I made it into a shaker card because I love my shaker cards. So this one is featuring the new designer series paper. It is Winter Meadow, which is in the 2023 Stampin' Up! Mini catalog. So it's really pretty. It's got that basic gray and kind of smoky slate, and it just has that deer kind of in the background. It's very subtle, and then it has the trees and stuff. So really kind of an elegant paper with that. And then I just kind of paired it with the silver foil embossed with the new Snow Flurry embossing folder, and then I just used Texture Chic, one of the snowflakes out of that stamp set. And then this other one is featuring the Walk in the Woods designer series paper. So again, there's the one side with the trees, and then the other side has the snowflakes. And then on this set, I'm featuring one of my favorite sets out of the mini catalog. It's that Forever Forest. I'm always a good tree fan for stamp sets. And this one has a really nice coordinating die set, and I'm going to show you how to use the mountain die today as well. As always, I always do several samples just because I always like to practice, and then also just kind of give you guys some other ideas on what you can do. So again, this is the portrait way and this is the landscape way. The other one that I did, because I love my little winter owls, this one is using the winter owls, and again, it's the A Walk in the Forest designer series paper. And here I did the tree and I kind of sponged it, and then I have my little owl poking out. And then for the branches, what I did is I did 3 layers of cardstock just to give it a little bit of support since it was overhanging on there. And then the owl here is just used with dimensionals. So again, there's that little step. You can kind of see that. And then you open it up, and again, I like to use kind of coordinate that paper and then finish off with your sentiment. And then if you want, I know on some of these I kind of decorated the back. You can do that too. If you have any scraps left over, I was kind of using that on the back of it. So that's the owl one. And then my other one that is the portrait is this Light the Sky. And this one, I did put the glow in the dark paper behind it. I don't know if I may have to. I think my room's going to be too light here, but let me see if I can get this. If I shut off this light, if you can see it. Oh, it's got a little bit of glow on there. So another kind of fun thing that's in the mini catalog is that glow in the dark paper. And then this is that new holographic specialty paper. So there's like 3 sheets. This is kind of more of like that iridescent. And then the other one has this kind of cool darker one. And then I did do the basics 3D folder that you can find online through Stampin' Up! And you can visit my website at lschmitt.stampinup.net to get any of these items. And then again, I just kind of did the galaxy or stargazing designer series paper on this one. So this one I really like. This is kind of a fun one on that. So kind of different with the fireworks too. And then my other one, I'm sending this one to my sister. So my family, we have a history of breast cancer. I am a 11-year survivor, and both my sisters have had double mastectomies. So my sister Jackie is currently recovering, so I made this card for her because I know she's just kind of feeling pain and healing and stuff after her surgery a few days ago. So this one is using In the Moment, and then the Autumn designer series paper with the books on there. So I love how this got that little sweater kind of snuggly, and then she's got a dog, of course. Well, 2 dogs. So I know she's kind of sitting there reading and kind of just relaxing. So thought I would send her this one. So that's another one, and this would be the landscape design on it. All right, so we're going to get started. So let me put some of these other ones away. We're going to start with this one, and then I'm going to show you how to do this one where I stepped it up, making it into a shaker. So your supplies that you'll need. Get all my pieces out here. Okay. All right. Lots of pieces. The base of the card is going to be 4 1/4 by 11. You're going to score at 1, 2, and 6 1/2, and that's what's going to make this part of the card. So you're making this bottom part, what I call the card base on that one. And then your tent piece is a piece of, I do the same color cardstock, but you can coordinate. You can do a different color if you want. This is going to be 2 3/4 by 8, and then you're going to score at 5 1/2. So this is what's making this part of the card, is the tent. Now you notice on this one, I did keep it at the 11, because I thought, well, maybe if it had a little bit more support, it would stand, you know, up a little bit better, and it really didn't make a difference. So if you don't want to use up, you know, all that cardstock, you can just keep it at what I have this one at, being 8 inches in length. So again, that one's scored at 5 1/2. And then for your designer series paper that's on the front and on the inside, that is going to be 4 widthwise by 4 1/4. So make sure that, because when I first did this, I had it had cut it wrong, and so my trees weren't lined up. So make sure it's 4 width, and then 4 1/4 is the length. Again, so 2 of those. And then the inside piece, that again is where you're going to put your saying. That's going to be 4 by 4 1/4. Looks like I may have to cut one more of those pieces. And then for your tent, now I like to triple layer. So I do the white cardstock, which is going to be 2 1/2 by 5 1/4. And then I go down 1/4 of an inch for my designer series paper, and this is 2 1/4 by 5. So before I forget, I do want to cut one more of these really quick. And I do have the paper handy. So let me... Yeah, so this one has all this kind of fun paper. So I'll take one of these, and we'll cut this really quick. Like I said, it needs to be that 4 1/4, or 4 by 4 1/4, sorry. So we're going to do 4 by 4 1/4. Okay. And then I've got all my stuff. Okay, so again, those are going to be, you need those 2 pieces for that. All right, so let's do our scoring. So on this one, I'll do this so you can see. So this is our card base, which was 4 1/4 by 11. We're going to score at 1, 2, and 6 1/2. So we're at the 1 inch, the 2 inch, and 6 1/2 on that. Okay. Then your tent card, which was the 2 3/4 by 8. We're only going to score this one at 5 1/2, which looks like I already did it. So that'll be at 5 1/2. And then that's it for the scoring. Look at our pieces here. So now for the card base, I always look at like where my score lines are. So this kind of dips in. So I want to actually fold on that side. So I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this down. And then I'm going to go back. So now I've got that little step. And then this part here, the main one, is then going to fold back. So again, because my score, I'm looking at where my score line, where the crease is in the paper, because I want to fold with the grain. Okay, so now there's our base of our card. So there's that little step. Okay. And then this part, this was your tent. And you're going to score, or you're going to fold this one down, because this is going to be that flap. And then what you'll do is you'll keep the bottom of this card, the tent, flush with the bottom. And then this is just going to be attached here so that you've got that height. Okay? So that's the folding. Now let's go ahead and just put our pieces together here. I'm just going to layer my cardstock and designer series paper onto my tent card. So again, this was that white piece. Again, you can, if you just want to do the one layer, then it would be 2.5 by 5 1/4. And you could just leave it, you know, as is, but I'm going to do one more layer. So I'm just going to attach this on. Making sure you're centered. And then I'm going to do another layer. So this is that designer series paper that was cut at 2 1/4 by 5. And then while I have this, I've already die cut my trees. So from the Forever Forest, I did the large tree. I did one of the taller, skinnier ones, and then the next size down on those. So they're already die cut. This was using up, I had some scraps left over from last year's glitter paper. So I'm just using up my scraps. I figure you get all this paper, you might as well use it up and not just hoard it. So this, it's easier on these really delicate pieces to use a liquid glue. And then if you get too much, just kind of smear it off with your fingers. And then I always like to use some tweezers just to kind of hold it in place. All right, so then on this one, we're just going to off-center it a little bit. And smooth that down. And then we'll do our Pretty Peacock. Oh yeah, so my colors were Pretty Peacock is my color, the main base, which is one of our colors that they brought back. It used to be a in color years ago, and then now it's a core color in our Regals family. And then the other color is Balmy Blue, which has been, that's in the subtles, and that's been around for quite some time. All right, and then we'll just put this one here, layering it on top. And then the last little tree will be done in Balmy Blue. A lot of times I'm not even really squeezing the bottle, I'm just dropping or kind of getting this little dobs of glue. And then having a silicone mat underneath always kind of helps too, so you don't get sticky paper on your workstation. And then because we're attaching this onto some glitter paper, I'm actually just going to put a stamp block on top of this to let it dry and kind of give it some weight so it's not bopping around on me. Okay, so now this was our base of our card that had the steps. So let's go ahead and add our paper. So again, this is that DSP that is 4 by 4 1/4. And that's going to go on the front. And if you want to decorate the inside, it goes on the inside. So this is going to be right within this center card. So you're getting that little border, the Pretty Peacock border going all the way around. And then go ahead and open up your card, and you're going to put that same pattern paper, which was 4 by 4 1/4. And that's going to go up here. And you can flip it if you want, you know, have the alternating. If you wanted to have the snowflakes showing, you can do that, but I still wanted the trees. being my main focal on this one. All right, and then for the inside cardstock, this was 4 by 4 1/4, and I'm just going to real quick stamp my trees. I'm going to do them in Balmy Blue, and this is from that Forever Forest. And I just re-inked my pads. I had done a stamping event last Friday, and then also the weekend prior, so my stamp pads have been getting used by lots of people, so I had to re-ink a lot of my stuff. All right, so there's the Balmy Blue. And then we'll do the Saying, which is from the Winter Owls. May you have time to enjoy the quiet moments of this season. You know, it's crazy. Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and then it's Christmas, and I haven't done any of my shopping. Oh, yeah. I don't even know what to get people. Okay. All right. And we'll set that aside for now. Okay. And then this is going to get attached to the inside of your card. Give everything one so that looks all good. All right, so now the front step. So if you, on this one, what I did is I did 3 die cuts of that mountain, the snow mountains. Now normally if you don't want to do something with die cuts, you can just do a strip of paper, and this was like 3/4 of an inch by what is this, 5.5, so 5 1/4. Yeah, it'd be 5 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch. With that. So that's another way of doing it. So, okay. So now we can go ahead and attach this, and then we'll do our mountains. So what I like to do, let's see here. I think I did attach that first because then, yep, these are going on top. All right. So this one I did keep centered. So I always want to make sure that this is flush with the bottom of my card. And I know that I'm only going to put adhesive here, so I like to use a strong adhesive. So I'm just using my tear and tape. You can use liquid glue too. I just kind of like the tear and tape when I'm doing stuff like this. And where's my little pick tool? All right, so making sure this is centered where you want it. It's flush at the bottom, and then I'm just going to press this down, and then now it's attached. And then we'll go ahead, and again I like to use that tear and tape. I'm going to put adhesive right here. And then I keep everything closed, and then I just bring this down. So now it's attached. You got your little step, and you can leave it just like that if you wanted, but we're going to add those snow mountains. So let's go ahead and die cut those. I'm going to show you how I do these, because this die is one where when you look at it, you would think that it's cutting this part off, but it doesn't. It kind of does. It only cuts the mountain part. So what I do is I've got some of my cardstocks, and so this one I know it has to be the same size as the front of my card, which was the 4 1/4. And I made this just a titch longer, because this one is just going to be for the white mountains. So I keep it so that the die is flush at the end of the paper, and that way it's cutting out, and then I'm only getting the mountains. So we'll go ahead and run this through. Get this out of the way. Okay. Our little die cutting machine. Now, I always have, when I do the videos, it's like I need more space at my desk. Okay. Get this out of the way. Kind of zoom out just a touch so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so we're going to have the base plate, our cutting plate, and then I like to use my mint tape, and I'm using the thick white cardstock too from Stampin' Up, the basic white, and I only want, so this is going to be flush against that edge of my cardstock, and then I'm just going to tape this down so it doesn't move on me. And then we've got our top cutting plate. And I always like to kind of stagger these plates so it feeds through the machine a little bit easier. Okay, so there's our one. So this will be the front one where we didn't color it. So I'm just going to set that aside. And then we're going to cut one more, or two more, I should say. And again, we're going to color these with the ink pads. So I want this to be cutting. So I'm going to keep this flush at the bottom. Hold that in place and then stagger those. There's two, and then I'm going to show you on this one, I'm just going to attach it right in the middle, and I'm going to show you what it does if you don't, let's see if if this piece is big enough. So you'll see what I'm saying, where it doesn't cut that bottom part. So I'm not at the bottom of this cardstock. Of course, here, I think I was down too far. But anyway, here, I'll show you, because it does, because I know when I first did this, I was like, wow, it's not cutting. Here, I'll just show you. I needed a bigger piece, so we'll just put this right here. I'm not crazy, seriously. It doesn't cut it at the bottom. All right. See? So it cuts. It doesn't cut this bottom part off. You can see that. So we've got lots of mountains now to play with. All right, so that's it for the die cutting. Let me put this away. All right, and we are going to color these. So I know this one has got to be the 4 1/4, so I do need to trim this really quick so that I know this one is my 4 1/4. And I'm just going to take it off of this end. So this will be my front piece. So that's my front piece. I'm just going to set that aside and not color it. And then we will get out some scratch paper. So then I'm thinking I could just trim that, because what I like to do is alternate them a little bit. So that you're getting all 3 mountains, so something like that. And then I would just cut from here on over. So I think that looks pretty good. Okay. So this is my front one. I'm not going to mess with it. And this one is going to be my balmy blue. So I'm going to start, make sure this is, we're just going to use our blending brush. I can zoom in a little bit again. And we're just gonna color our mountains. So just kind of working in a circular motion. Just adding a little bit of color to those mountains. Okay, so there's the balmy blue ones. So those will get behind. And then the last one we're gonna do in Pretty Peacock. So again, I'm using the same blending brush, but I just kind of wipe it off, make sure it's got that color off, and I'm working from light to dark. So if you were doing the darker one first, you would want to make sure that all that dark ink was off of your brush before you went on. I always tap just to make sure I get some of that excess ink off, and now we're going to do that Pretty Peacock on this one. So if you apply a little bit more pressure, you're going to get the darker ink on there. Okay. Then what I like to do, so then when you're done with this, you would just rinse it off with water and let it air dry. I'm just going to set it aside. I wanted to add a little bit of the white kind of flecks of snow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Craft White ink refill bottle. I'm going to shake this up really quick. I'm going to put a little bit on my acrylic block. Ugh, my bottle's getting empty. I gotta order some new one. And then I'm going to take my water painter, and I have an old one that we used to sell just for this technique because it does gunk up your brush with this crafting. So I keep this one only for this technique. So I'm going to add a little bit of water so that my brush is going to get enough ink on there. And then we're just going to hit this and kind of splatter to get those flakes. So when you do this, it does kind of make a mess. So you want to make sure your workspace and your card are out of the way because it does splatter. Okay. Make sure I've got enough on there. And then I just take like my bone folder, and then I'm just kind of tapping to getting those snow-covered mountains. I'll do the same thing on the blue. And then you would just rinse this out just to make sure you get all that ink off of there. And then because that's got the water on there, you want to let it dry just a quick second before you attach it. So I'm just going to give it a quick shot with the heat tool. So now you've got your little snow-capped mountains with that white craft ink. So super fun. All right, so now let's go ahead and assemble this onto our card. I want to make sure I don't have any white ink anywhere. Okay, so this was my front one, which I've cut already down to so that it's the 4 1/4. And then we're going to attach this behind. And then this one will go. Yeah, I think I want to go kind of like that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive actually, let's see here. We want to do, yeah, so I think I'll just use my normal tape for this. So I'm just going to put some adhesive on the bottom, and then this way I'm lining this up on the edge. Sorry, I got to be able to see what I'm doing here. There we go. Okay, so then that's flush at the bottom, and we're going to trim this off later. And then we're going to do these, off-centered them a little bit. I think that looks good, so we'll go ahead and put adhesive here. And then again, I'm just kind of keeping that flush. You can move it over just a little bit, but you don't want to go too far because it has to be that 4 1/4. So let's do right about there. All right, so then these are going to get trimmed off. So you can either use your paper cutter or just freehand cut it with some scissors. And then those will get attached onto the front. Now I do like to give it a little bit of dimension, so I'm using some foam tape, which I may need to cut a little bit here. There we go. You can use dimensionals too. This is just some tape I've got sitting by my desk that I just need to use up. Okay. And we'll peel that off. And then that is going to be attached onto your front step so that it's flush with the end of the card. Oops, sorry. Just want to make sure. Even. And there's that. So I've got my layers on there. And then we're going to add a little bit of bling just to finish off this card. So these are the iridescent pastel gems that are in the main catalog, the Stampin' Up! Annual catalog. So we're gonna go, I think one of these is like, yeah, these have a little bit more blue to them. It's kind of hard to, so one of them is kind of more clear iridescent, and then this one has the blue, and then this is kind of more like a pinky red. So we're gonna go with these center ones, which are a little bit more blue. And I like to do a large one, and then I'll do a smaller one at a diagonal off to the side. Now normally I say do a triangle, but as your eye is looking at this, I've got 1, 2, and then my trees are that third thing to make my triangle. I know my card people, my card class are always like, we're always making triangles. All right, so that is the faux step, and this is the portrait one. So I'm going to real quick pause, clean up my desk, and then I will start with the landscape one, and then doing it as a shaker card. So hold on. All right, so now we're going to do the other card, which was what I call more of the landscape style with it. And again, I'm using the Quiet Meadow or Winter Meadow. What is this? Yes, Winter Meadow Designer Series paper that is in the 2023 Stampin' Up! Holiday Mini Catalog. And then this is the one where I stepped it up and I made it into a shaker card for that. So the supplies you're going to need for this style, your card base is going to be 5.5 by 8. And you are going to score at 3, 6, and 7 on the long inch side. Then for my tent, I do the same color cardstock, so this is basic gray, and this is 3 by 6, and I'm going to score at 4 1/4. Now on this one, I am using, for my front step, I am doing some paper. So this is some retired silver foil. I just had some scraps left over, and then I already put it through the embossing folder, the new one, Snowflake Sky, which is in the 2023 mini catalog. So that's going to be 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4, and that is going to go on that front step. Then for your outside, inside pieces, I do my Designer Series paper. So I did 2 of them, one for the front and one for the inside. These are both going to be 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. And again, you need 2. So I had just had some scraps left over. This was like from the top of it. and I just kind of divided it in half. So that's the front, that's the inside. And then my cardstock for my greeting that'll go on the inside. This one is Smoky Slate, and this is 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. And then for the shaker card, I just cut, I'm using the deckled rectangular dies, and I did the 1, 2, so 4th and 5th size up, and I just cut some, I just had some of that silver foil paper left over, just enough that it fits on here because I'm making this frame. So that is going to be, what would be the frame? The frame is going to be around, when it gets done, 2 3/4 by 4 by the time you get the frame done. So that's for the shaker. And then for my inside, excuse me. Oh, I did have it on here. 2 3/4 by 4 is kind of what my paper is to cut to make the frame, but the frame ends up being a little bit smaller than that. And then the Designer Series paper for the inside of my shaker, that is cut to be 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. So that's this piece. That's going to go on the inside of my shaker. And then your window sheet to make the shaker to hold the pieces in. It just needs to be about 2 1/2 by 3 3/4, and you may need to snip it just a bit so that it fits inside the frame. But I always like to cut it a little bit bigger just so I have some wiggle room if I need to trim it. So we'll keep that on there so I don't lose my, I don't lose the window sheet. But before we get going, I just want to cut this before I forget. So let's just real quick die cut this. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here. So we got our platform, the cutting mat, and again I've got that mint tape that I use. Just it's a low tack tape, just to hold my frames in place, or the rectangles in place, so I can make a frame. And let's crank this through. And that's it for that die cutting. So then you've got your piece to make the frame. Oh, get that off. And then this piece I just use for something else. I just throw that in my scrap drawer. And then this one is going to be the frame that we use. So that is it for the die cutting. Put these away, otherwise they'll be on my desk and they'll get lost forever. Just throw these in here. Okay. All right, so now let's get our scoring done on the card. We'll zoom in just a little bit. So on our card base, which was the 5 1/2 by 8, you want to score on the long side at 3, 6, and 7. And that. And then on the tent, we're going to, again, that was 3 by 6. We're going to score on the long side at 4 1/4. That's done. And that's it for the scoring. Let's go ahead and assemble this. So again, I kind of look at where my score lines are. So I've got the kind of the indentation or indent. So that's the side that I'm going to fold into. And then I'm going to do a fan fold and go back. So now there's my step, okay? And then this piece folds back. So again, my indentation is here. So I'm just going to flip this over and fold. So now you've got this look. So you got your step and then the angle. And I always just like to take my bone folder and just run it over one more time just to burnish everything. Make sure it's nice and crisp. And then this one again, we're just going to fold back because this is making that tent. And again, you can either center this, but because of my pattern paper, I wanted my deer to show, so I kind of moved mine over just a little bit so that I could still see that deer. And this piece, really, you can make this narrower if you want. It can be really whatever width is going to work on your card, so that you can kind of play around with. So I'm going to go ahead and put my designer series paper on my card front. So we'll get that positioned so that I know where my tent needs to go. So again, this was that front. I'm just going to bend this down so I can see a little bit better. Okay, and then on my front step, I've got that little 3/4 of an inch strip of metallic paper. So it's 3/4 of an inch by 5 1/4. And again, this can be designer series paper. It can be, you know, metallic. It can be cardstock. Whatever your heart desires. Like I said, I just had some of the scrap metallic paper left over from last year, so might as well use it up. All right. Make sure that's good and down. All right, and then let's go ahead and open up our card, and we'll put in our other piece of designer series paper that was the same size as the front. So I'm just going to decorate my front inside. So it's going to go in this middle panel. And then I'm doing the smoky slate for my saying. So in here, I did a little bit of, I don't know if you can see it, I kind of did some of the metallic ink pad that I had, and we're just doing a little bit of flurries, and then I've got some dies left over. And these dies I had done from the chick dies, so I used some of these snowflakes out of here for my die cutting is what I did on that. So I did all of this already, so I don't have to, you know, to painfully watch me die cut a million things. All right, so let's go ahead and do our stamping on the inside here so it's done. Sorry, I just had to poke those out. Okay, so these were, we had carried these a few years ago in the mini catalog. I just kept mine because I tend to keep a lot of my retired stuff because I use it. And so did a lot of my customers. So, and this is again from the Season of Chic, or Chic, Season of Chic. It's kind of this little flurry kind of thing. So I'm just doing this on the bottom. And this is just a real subtle, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera or not, but it's got like a little silver metallic shimmer to it. I don't know if you can see that or not. So it's just a little bit of detail. All right, and then we'll clean that off. And then my saying is from the Very Best Occasion. So I'm just going to be using this one. May your days be happy, your heart be light, your Christmas merry, and the new year bright. And that is going to be done in the basic gray. So it matches our cardstock. That is really it for the stamping. So this can go ahead and go on the inside. And then I like to just decorate because I had these dies left over. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of liquid glue on these little snowflakes to adhere inside the card. So we'll do one down here, and then we'll do one of these. Alright, so now the inside of the card's all decorated. Okay, so then let's go ahead and make our shaker. So for our shaker, get this stuff out of the way. We're going to go ahead and put the designer series paper onto that front of that tent. And again, this piece was the 2.5 by 3 3/4. So this is going to go right in the center. All right, and then we're going to make our shaker. So we need to put, let me get this off here. Let's see here. Oh, here it is. I just have to get this mint tape off. It was still stuck. There we go. All right, so we want to attach our window sheet. So this was at 2.5 by 3 3/4, and I may need to trim it. We'll see. And that should fit in there pretty well, so I don't have to trim it, so we're all good. Now this is, maybe I'll get this up so you can see a little bit better. I'm just going to use the Stampin' Up! Little craft sheet here. You're laying this, you're going to put adhesive on all on the back side here, and then this window sheet is just going to be attached to it. So I am going to use just the regular tape runner versus liquid glue, so just in case it smears, I don't want it going all over. But the craft sheet or any type of silicone mat is going to be nice when you're doing this, because you can just rub off the adhesive and it's not going to, you know, stick to your paper or grid paper. It just comes right off of this silicone mat, which is pretty handy. I have silicone mats in like every size you can think of. They're always just nice to have. All right, so let's go ahead and we're just going to attach this to the back. Oh, need to come up just a little bit, because this is what's going to hold your shaker pieces inside your frame, is this window. Okay, so now those are all attached for the shaker window. Now we're going to add, we got to build up the walls. So we're going to take some of the foam strips from Stampin' Up! And when I did this, I think I was able to go all the way around. So we're going to put this, starting, we're going to go all the way around and just kind of twist it, bend it, so you get to the next corner. And then we'll twist, and I think I need one more strip because it's not quite there. Okay, so now we've got one of these other ones. And you want to make sure this gets butted up against that one we just finished off, because we don't want any space, because you don't want to lose your shaker pieces. And then we'll bend it. And then making sure, there we go, this one is right up against that other strip. So about 1.5 strips to fit around the shaker. Okay, and then I just want to make sure I don't have any that looks good. And then what I also like to do when I'm doing shaker cards is I still like to have some bling, like when you're looking at it, like still some bling up here. So I'm actually using some adhesive gems to put onto the card in addition to the shaker pieces, just so that you're always going to see a few pieces at the top. So I'm just going to do a couple different, making that triangle. We'll do one down here. And this is totally optional. This is just, you know, me being me. I like my bling. Okay, now we're gonna, now when you're doing this, I just, so that my thing didn't move on me, I just kind of held this down so that it's not, I don't bump it or make a mess. All right, so we're gonna do some shaker pieces, and I've got, I don't know, I just have so much sequins. I've got a lot of retired stuff. So these were from, I think last year. They're the Subtle Shimmer. We just now have, in the main catalog, it's just silver, like plain, so you could do that as well. I'm just using up some of these. Now, this is a pretty big shaker, so you can go a little heavy on the sequins that you're putting in here. And then I'm also going to throw in some other, it's not from Stampin' Up, but it's from your local craft store. I do like this iridescent sequin. So, and this is like super fine, and then it's got some of these holographics. I'm going to put a little bit of this in here, as well as these other ones are kind of iridescent. And I'll be finding sequins on my desk for days after doing this, or on my face. All right. That. And then I usually just give it a little look here and see. I could probably do a little bit more of the main one. A little bit more of the white in here. Okay. Oh, see? I said, don't make a mess. Never fails. Get sequins everywhere. Better than glitter, though, I will say. Or embossing powder. It's always something that I'm spilling whenever I'm doing these videos. Just like when I'm in the kitchen, I make a mess. Okay. Okay, let's close this up before I make more of a disaster. All right, that looks good. All right, so now we're going to take our frame and put it on top. So I'm going to remove these foam, the backing. And then what we're going to do is, I may need a stand to do this. So this is going to go right on top Making sure hopefully it's all centered, because once it's down, it's down. I can lift this up so it's not moving on me. And there's our shaker. I love it. So fun. Okay, so now let's go ahead and attach this. So again, we want this flush at the bottom, and I'm going to move this over so I can see my other deer. And then I'm only putting adhesive on this top part. So I'm going to use my tear and tape. So that'll go there, and then you're also going to put on the bottom of this card too, because this is what's going to be attached to the step on the front. Like that and like that. Okay. So I'm going to do this matching up the step first, just to make sure I've got it aligned flush at the bottom. So again, I want to still see this deer. So I'm just moving this over a little bit, and then I'm keeping this all flush at the bottom. And I'm pressing that down. So now that's attached to the front. And then now we're going to remove this one. And then I just keep it closed and then just run it with my bone folder to make sure everything's good and sealed. All right, that is it. That is the... Oh, and then I forgot. Oh my gosh, I gotta do my little snowflake here. So I had already embossed this. I did it on smoky slate, and I did some white glitter embossing powder that we had a few years ago, and then again another little scrap of this silver metallic. And we're just gonna glue this on top of that snowflake, and these are from that Textured Chic bundle. Come on, glue. Oh, there we go. Okay, I got a little heavy-handed there. So I'm just removing some of that excess glue. It came out a little fast for me. I should have done my finer tipped nozzle. And we're just going to line this on top. Make sure it's all adhered good. All right, so then this is going to go right about there. And again, for this one, because it's raised, I'm actually going to do a little bit of the tear and tape on here to hold it rather than liquid glue, because it's on this metallic and then the plastic. So I'm just positioning it. And we'll go right about there. So if I think and just peel that off. There we go. So there is the landscape version of the Faux Step card. Kicking it up with a shaker card in the center. And then again, of course, the portrait style Faux Step. So really fun technique, fun fold. I just love being able to use cards that show off both sides of the designer series paper. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day, and I will stamp again with you soon. Bye-bye.